Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wind Down Wednesday, episode 38. A few quick announcements as we get started tonight. The Wind Down Wednesday podcast is going strong. I've got, I think, 32 episodes now uploaded for that, and I found it's a really great way to revisit these episodes as I'm going through. I make some cuts, so any announcements that I made are no longer there. We just get right into the meat of the topic, and it's split into two parts, so you can listen to the first part and then just stop, or you can jump to the meditation. I'm also adding some times on the meditations, both on my website and on YouTube. I got a great request from someone about that. So if you've practiced one of my meditations or you've watched a Wind Down Wednesday a couple times and you want to skip to the meditation, there will be a note in the description that tells you the time you can jump to get to that meditation. And I'm still working on that. The last few episodes are there, but it's going to take me a while to get back. We have 38 episodes now for me to go back, but the recorded meditations are now time-stamped, so you can jump past the introduction if you'd like. So tonight we are going to talk about intuitive decision-making, and I want to explain how this topic came up because I think it's really interesting, and then we're going to go into a little bit of kind of how we tend to make decisions in our lives and what I mean by intuitive decision making. So I was talking with a really good friend the other day, and we were talking about selling, about buying and selling things. And she said something that really struck me, and it's kind of been percolating around in my brain ever since then. Essentially, she said that it doesn't matter to her who is selling. It doesn't matter to her if the person is selling out of abundance and intuition, or if they're selling out of like fear and scarcity, which you can feel as them being kind of pushy as somebody who's buying something, because she makes all of her decisions about buying from intuition. So she's completely unattached to the situation of selling or the person who's selling, because she already knows intuitively whether she wants to purchase whatever it is, whether it's a product or a class, or we were kind of talking in general. And a couple things came to me. First of all, she called this a feminine sales model, kind of selling and buying from intuition. That's how this subject came up, as opposed to the masculine model of kind of selling out of scarcity or desperation, even out of fear. It's a fear-based model. And she was talking about buying, about her experience as a buyer, but the whole system needs to shift to this intuitive, whether we're buying or selling. And that's kind of what our whole conversation was about. And that could be an entirely different show, but I'm going to talk about intuitive decision-making tonight. So a couple of the things that came to me as she was talking, the first thought that I had was like, what a relief it would be if I could make decisions purely from intuition and let go of the kind of hemming and hawing and the mind chatter that goes on when I'm making, especially a big decision. I'm going to talk a little more about that. And then the second thing that came to me was just the beauty of her non-judgmentalness in the situation. I don't like being pushed to buy things. There's a long history in my family of that. There's kind of a funny story about how my dad got mad in Sears in 70 something or early 80s and never went back into Sears. I'm never going to buy anything from Sears again. And they did eventually close. A lot of the Sears closed, so maybe he was playing a really, really long game. But in the meantime, there were a lot of times growing up when Sears would have been the most convenient choice for us to buy something, and he just would not go into Sears. He refused. And there's a little bit of a kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face going on there. So intuitively, something might be right for you, but if you let the way it's presented to you turn you off, then you're missing out on the opportunity that your intuition, that your highest self is telling you is a good opportunity. And I never really thought of it that way until I was having this conversation with my friend. And I just thought it was really beautiful. I thought it was a really again, non-judgmental way, because you don't know when someone's selling and they're pushing. I don't think I'll ever like that. Energetically, I don't care for that. I don't respond well to that. But I also don't know the situation that the other person's in. And so turning the focus completely on yourself and listening, quietly connecting to your intuition and your highest self and deciding, is this right for me? It's just such a much more expansive way to make a decision in that specific situation. And we're going to talk about making decisions in general. I'm telling you about the buying and selling because that's kind of how this came to me. But I really think that this could apply in any kind of decision-making situation. So I want to talk a little bit about how I make big decisions and sometimes small decisions. I'm a very indecisive person, or I have a history of being that way. And everyone in my family is a little bit that way. What ice cream should I choose? And my husband will say, this is not the last ice cream cone you'll ever have. But what if it is? Like, there's so much pressure. I feel a lot of pressure around decision making, and especially when it comes to a big, like a life-changing decision. So I get very in my mind. I make pro-con lists. I try to be very rational. And all of these things are very ego-driven. And we've talked many, many times on the show about how the ego is fear-based. So essentially, I'm making decisions with a fear-based model. And one of my things that I'm guilty of, and I imagine every time I do these shows, I talk about myself because I know that many of you will hear yourselves, at least in part of what I'm saying. So I try to accommodate for infinite outcomes when I make decisions. What if this happens? And what if this happens? And what if this happens? And it leads to a couple things. It leads to something that my sisters and I call an OCD loop. So that's when you get so caught up in this loop of shouldn't I, that you completely lose your perspective of even what you're making a decision about. I remember one time I was in Target and I had bought these Christmas plates. I was hosting Christmas, and then I had a surprise extra person coming. So I went back to the Target. I had all these matching plates, and they were out of them. And I probably spent an hour, I'm not exaggerating, walking back and forth between these two different plates. Which plate? And that's what I mean by an OCD loop. And ultimately, not a big decision in life, not something that really deserved an hour of my time. But I got so in my brain about this, it's not going to match, and maybe this one's better, and maybe this one's better, that I completely lost my perspective about the fact that this was kind of a silly small decision that I could have easily made and just moved on with my day. And I think that a lot of us do that, and especially when it comes to big decisions. But the thing that I've noticed on this spiritual path is that the best things in life seem to come when we're in flow, not when we're trying to control things. What if this happens? What if this happens? And here's my pro-con list, and I don't know, and now I got to weight these, and that's very anxiety driven. It's very fear based. And flow is completely the opposite. Flow is being in that expanded, loving state. Flow allows us to connect to our intuition. And I was thinking about this. I just took a new job, and it came essentially out of nowhere. Like one day I was thinking, I wish I had something that I could do. And I had, I kind of listed some things in my mind, something that I could do on the side so that I could still do this business that I'm doing. And I kind of just threw it out there. And literally the next morning, I got a text from someone about this job. And so I immediately started my hemming and hawing that I always do. Well, I don't know, should I do this? And am I going to still have enough time to focus on my spiritual business and growing that? All these things came into my head. And I talked to my husband, and I talked to the HR lady, and then she was going to get back to me with kind of a final offer. And so I said to my husband, well, I'm not going to make a decision today. I'll see what she has to say. I'll tell her I need to think about it. We'll talk about it, and then I'll make my decision. And what actually happened is that when this woman called me and we started talking and she presented the offer, I found myself from this like deep place, from this intuitive place, just saying, yes, this sounds like a perfect fit. Those are the words that came out of my mouth. And I was like a little bit surprised because that was not what I intended to say. That was not what I had planned with my husband ahead of time. But I was in flow in that moment, and I was trusting that the universe was going to take care of me. And that's kind of what intuitive decision making really is. When we make decisions from a deeper place, we accept that the universe wants to support us. And then we can dream of something, we can visualize something, an ideal outcome, let's say, and then let go. And then not try to control the way that we get there. Let that wisdom, that divine connection, that intuitive highest self connection guide us into the flow. I had this thought about what I wanted, and the next day it showed up in a way that I never would have expected. And the other thing about making a decision out of flow is that there's less regret, because that's another thing. I definitely have the buyer's remorse. We call it sometimes in our family, the buyer's remorse. I feel like that's a pretty common phrase. And about this, I get the ice cream and then I'm like, oh, my husband's ice cream looks better. I have the buyer's remorse. Like, I feel like when you're making those you're not making intuitive decisions, when you're making those ego-based, fear-driven, rational brain decisions, you're always doubting yourself because what about this outcome? And what about this outcome? Because you're really trying to control. And as we've talked about many times, control is an illusion. And when we let go of control, when we open to a connection for our highest good, then things show up for us that are beyond what we could have imagined for ourselves. And that's the goal of a spiritual life. And so the last thing I want to say is that when I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking about how I choose crystals. And I posted today a picture of just a very simple crystal grid that came to me with a couple of beautiful crystals that I got recently. And when I go to buy my crystals, I go into the shop and I do it completely by intuition. Sometimes I have kind of an idea of what I want or what type of crystal maybe I'm looking for, but sometimes I just go in and let my body walk to where it walks. And then when I find the section I'm looking at, then I start to touch and I let my body figure out which crystal is right for me. And I allow myself to feel supported in that situation. And the interesting thing is that I don't have any buyer's remorse in that situation. Every time I pick a crystal, every time I make a grid, which I do, I'm looking down at my grid now, I do with completely out of intuition. It's always the perfect thing. I always feel completely supported. I don't have to worry that it's not going to work out for me. And I've talked a bit about kind of having these walls up in myself, and I think we all do that. And I have been very intuitive in my energy work and in my coaching and in my choosing of crystals. When I write music, it's almost completely intuitive. But in the rest of my life, I still have been very controlling. I still have been very ego-driven about how I choose things. I haven't allowed that intuitive flow to come into my everyday decisions. And so my goal is to bring that into my life. And I hope you will join me, because anytime we get more in touch with our intuition, anytime we open and expand to that divine connection, it takes us to another whole level. It takes us to a place beyond what that little ego mind can think of. And that little ego mind wants to keep us small. And that's not our job. That's not our path here. No matter what your path of divine service is, it's unique to you. It does not involve you staying small. It does not involve you worrying about every single little thing and trying to put the little chess pieces into place. Oh, it involves letting go and surrender and that divine intuitive connection. So what we're going to do tonight in our meditation is connect with our highest self. We did a full meditation on that a couple of weeks ago. So I suggest if you haven't done that meditation, maybe afterwards go back and visit that one, but don't worry about it. I will guide you into it tonight if you've not done it before. And we're just going to play with this a little bit. We're going to explore this idea of connecting with our intuition, of what it might feel like if we started to make our decisions that way. Maybe you'll find, like me, oh, what a relief. I mean, that's kind of how people get pulled into things like a cult, because they're tired of thinking for themselves. They're tired of trying to control things. And of course, that doesn't work out so well. But when you turn that illusion of control over to that unconditional power of whatever word you like, God, higher power, source, the universe, it's such a relief. And you will see, like I did with this job, that things start to shift right away. I was feeling kind of stuck. And then all of a sudden, it's not the direction I thought I was going necessarily, but it came with flow and it came intuitively. And that told me that it was something that was worth expanding into. And who knows where it will lead. Okay, so let's begin our meditation. Find yourself in a comfortable position. Let yourself breathe. Allow those oxytocin breaths in through the nose, deeply into the belly. And then sigh it out. Do at least 3 of those to begin. Feel the weight of your body settle onto whatever surface is supporting you. And really feel that support. Really let yourself feel supported here by the earth, by the energy around you. And then open that crown chakra, the top of your head, gently, and invite in that intuitive divine source, that light of love. Let it flow in through the top of your head, into your face and your jaw, into your neck and your throat and your shoulders. Invite this flow into your arms, your elbows, forearms, and wrists, into your hands. Allow this divine energy to continue to flow down your body through your chest and your upper back, into your abdomen and your mid-back, your low back and low belly. Let this energy flow into your hips and your pelvis. And again, feel the support of the earth beneath you, of that surface you're resting on. Continue to allow that gentle flow of intuitive light into your thighs. Let it come into your knees and your lower legs, into your ankles and feet. I open to love. I open to intuitive flow. I open to love. Allow your sanctuary to come into this physical space. Invite it into the room you're in right now, that safest of places. If you've never been there before, just imagine right now that you're sitting in the most beautiful, safest space you can imagine. Let yourself really be in that space and know that this is available to you at any time. This is your special, energetic sanctuary. This is a space that's all yours to do with as you wish. And invite your highest self to come into this space as we did a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't done this before, that's okay. Just set the intention. You can even say out loud, I invite my highest self to connect with me now. And then notice what happens. Perhaps you get a vision of a person or an animal. Perhaps you just feel an expansion in part of your body and maybe your heart space. Perhaps you start to receive information or feelings. In whatever way this comes to you, this is perfect for you today. This is your connection today. And maybe this is different from the last time you did this, and that's okay. Let yourself really connect with this highest self. This is the source of your intuition. This is your divine liaison to that beautiful golden light of unconditional love that really makes up everything in the universe. And notice how you feel in your body here, connecting to this intuitive self, to this highest self. Maybe there's no change, and that's fine. Maybe a little bit of fear comes up, and that's also okay. And maybe you feel a little bit of relief, a little bit of expansion. Let yourself feel supported here. Recognize that your highest self truly has your best interests at heart, in mind. Your highest self holds your best interest for you. And all you need to do is ask to receive information about what that is. So as you become more comfortable here, then staying in this space, ask yourself, what would my life be like if I made all of my decisions from this intuitive space? How would that look for me? Would that change anything? And again, this may be scary. The idea of this may seem very foreign, or it may seem like too much, like you'd be giving up too much. But it may feel maybe even a little bit of grain in there, just a tiniest grain of sand of relief, of expansion, of a release of pressure. There's no right way to make a decision, but allowing your intuition to guide you brings you into flow. So imagine how that flow would feel. How would that show up in your life? And commit to make at least 3 decisions in this next week in this way. They can be very small decisions. What to eat for dinner. Instead of just grabbing the first thing that comes to your mind, take 2 or 3 of those oxytocin breaths and then connect to your highest self and say, what should we have for dinner? And if nothing comes, you can always try touching it. We can get a lot of intuitive information in our body. If you pick something up and your body constricts, if it tightens up, that's an intuitive message that that's maybe not right for you. You can tell sometimes by how your space feels, especially in the heart space. If you feel expanded about a decision, that might be your intuition telling you that that's a good decision for flow. If you feel tight, if you feel fearful, that might be a sign that that's not an intuitive decision that will keep you in flow. And there's always big fear in decisions. There's always some doubt. That's not what we're talking about when I talk about constriction. And you can tell the difference. You can discern the difference between, this is a big decision, and I hope this is the right one, and that constriction of something that doesn't feel right to you. Maybe it's a gut reaction. Maybe your guts clench up. Everyone is different. So let yourself feel into the body here. Let yourself ask your highest self, how do I know what my intuition is telling me when it comes to making a decision? And then wait for the answer. And this answer may not come in words or even pictures. It might be a feeling. Your highest self might be showing you in your body the difference between a yes and a no, how that feels physically to you personally. Let yourself explore that a little bit. And then as you're ready, introduce an actual decision into this space. You can start again with something very small. What should I wear tomorrow? What should I watch on TV tonight? Or you can look at a larger decision maybe that's looming and feel into this intuitive connection, into this connection to your highest self, into this information you just received about how you can discern for yourself what your intuition is telling you in a given moment. And now explore that with this decision that has come into your mind. And it's easiest to start with yes or no. Yes tends to feel expanded. No tends to feel more contracted. Maybe you'll actually get an answer about it. But when you start to get comfortable with the yes and no and how that feels, then you can start to apply that to more complex situations. But even in a big decision, there's generally a yes or no aspect. So just continue to allow yourself to explore that decision for a few moments. Feel what it feels like if you say yes, if you choose one thing, if you say no, if you choose the other option. And you can narrow it down this way if there's more than two options. But for now, just stick with the two options that come into your mind. Take a nice deep breath. Sigh it out. Release any tension that came up while you were exploring this decision. And then stay for a few more minutes connected to your highest self and ask if there's any more information that's meant to come in for you tonight, whether it's about this intuitive decision making, whether it's some other form of information about some other aspect. Just let yourself open as you're connected here And recognize again the expanded feeling of receiving this intuitive information, the support that comes when you're receiving this intuitive information. Remember that you can come back to this space at any time. You can invite your highest self to communicate with you at any time. You can ask for intuitive information at any time. And let yourself trust that information. Let yourself trust that expansion when you feel it. And let yourself trust when something isn't right for you. And ask for the courage to say no when needed. Gently release your energetic sanctuary. If you'd like, let it go back into the spiritual realms where it waits for you as you're ready, as you need support. You can gently allow the crown of your head to close if you'd like, or leave it open for the highest good. And one last time, let's invite that intuitive flow, that highest self information, that divine light to flow in through the head, through the shoulders and arms and the torso, through the hips and the pelvis and the legs. And then just briefly send your roots down from the feet or whatever part of you is contacting the ground. And feel the support there in the earth that's there to support you, that's there to hold you and cradle you. Intuitive information can also come from this rich, fertile soil beneath us. And we're in flow when we're connected from that divine source all the way down through the body and into the earth, physically anchored here while we live in this physical realm. As you're ready, you can wiggle your fingers a bit, roll your wrists, maybe wiggle your toes and your ankles, move your head around a bit if you'd like, just coming back into the body fully. And affirm with me out loud, I am fully present in my body. I am fully present in my body, and I remain open to intuitive flow. I am fully present in my body, and I rely on my highest self to support me when making decisions. Take one last big deep breath, sigh it out. And as you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you will revisit this, and I hope you will bring this intuitive support into your life when you're making decisions. I thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I encourage you to make 3 decisions this week based solely on that intuitive information that you tapped into this evening. Have a wonderful rest of your night, an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next week for Wind Down Wednesday.